What if I told you that the very thing designed to keep you alive could also be silently killing you? I'm not talking about some rare disease or a freak accident. I'm talking about something inside your body right now. Fat. Not just the fat you can pinch on your waist, but the hidden kind, wrapping around your heart, lungs and liver like a vice grip you can't see or feel until it's too late. Most of us have been told that fat is just about looks, just about numbers on the scale. But here's the shocking truth. Fat is an organ, alive, releasing hormones and chemicals that can set off a chain reaction of inflammation, clogged arteries, organ failure, and even mental health struggles. What was once your body's greatest survival tool is now, in our modern world, turning into your greatest threat. Welcome to the Wellness Way, where we dig into the hidden battles happening inside your body. And in today's video, you'll discover why too much fat doesn't just change your appearance, it rewires your health from the inside out. If you're ready to uncover the truth and take back control, hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to learn could change the way you see your body forever. When I first started learning about fat, I thought of it the same way most people do. Something that makes your clothes feel tighter, something that shows up in the mirror when you don't like what you see, something that's more about appearance than health. But the more I dug into it, the more I realized how wrong I was. Fat isn't just sitting there under your skin like an unwanted passenger. Fat is alive. It breathes in its own way, it communicates, it influences nearly every single part of your body. And in some cases, it can slowly take control of your health without you even noticing. That realization hit me hard because I, like many others, used to reduce the entire conversation about fat to two words: weight gain. But here's the shocking part. You can have what looks like a normal body on the outside. No obvious belly, no extra pounds according to the scale, and still be dealing with dangerous levels of fat hidden inside your body. This invisible fat, the kind that wraps itself around your heart, liver, and other vital organs, is called visceral fat. And it's often far more dangerous than the fat you can see. Think about that for a second. We live in a world where we're bombarded with diets, workouts, miracle supplements, and body-shaming messages that make fat seem like nothing more than a cosmetic issue. Yet the real story is far scarier. Fat isn't just a layer beneath your skin. It's an organ, like your liver or kidneys. It produces hormones, it releases chemicals, it interacts with your immune system. In the right amount, fat is actually essential. It kept our ancestors alive through famines and freezing winters. But in the wrong amount, in the world we live in today, it becomes one of the most destructive forces inside the human body. Let me put it in perspective with a story. A friend of mine, someone you'd never call overweight, went to the doctor because he was feeling tired all the time. He wasn't obese. He wasn't what anyone would call fat. Yet his test results showed early signs of fatty liver disease and elevated blood pressure. The culprit? Visceral fat. He didn't see it. He didn't feel it. But it was silently putting pressure on his organs, slowly setting the stage for much bigger problems. That's when it really sank in for me. Fat isn't just about how you look. It's about what's happening underneath the surface. What makes fat so tricky is the paradox. On one hand, it's our ally. Without fat, our bodies wouldn't have energy reserves. We wouldn't be able to regulate temperature. Our organs wouldn't have the cushioning they need. Fat even helps us by producing hormones that keep our systems running smoothly. It's not the enemy. It never was. But here's the twist. The very thing that once kept humans alive during harsh times is now, in our age of abundance, one of the main reasons people are getting sick. That's the cruel irony. Fat evolved to protect us, and now, in excess, it's destroying us. This is what I like to call the Goldilocks problem of fat. Too little, and your body struggles to function. Too much, and your health begins to collapse. You need just the right amount, and that just right is where things get complicated. Because what's healthy for one person may not be healthy for another. A certain percentage of body fat might not cause any issues in someone with great genetics, low stress, and balanced hormones. But in another person, the same percentage could be enough to trigger inflammation, disrupt metabolism, and lead to serious disease. And that's where the conversation usually falls apart in mainstream health. We've been taught to see fat as something you can measure by a number on the scale or a pair of jeans. But fat is much more than that. It's about where it's stored in your body. It's about how it interacts with your hormones. It's about how much stress it places on your organs. Two people can weigh exactly the same, yet one of them can be at far greater risk of heart disease, diabetes, or even cancer because of how their fat is distributed. That's the part almost nobody talks about. I remember the first time I saw an anatomical image of two bodies placed side by side, one with a normal level of visceral fat, and one with an excess. The difference was shocking. In the body with excess fat, every organ looked cramped, pressed, suffocated by a layer of tissue that wasn't supposed to be there in that amount. It wasn't about body shape anymore, it was about survival. And for me, that visual drove home the point better than any statistic ever could. Too much fat doesn't just sit there, it actively changes the way your body functions. The crazy part is that fat doesn't always show itself in obvious ways. You might look in the mirror and think you're fine, but inside your body could be quietly struggling. That's what makes this issue so important to talk about, because the conversation isn't about shame. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about understanding what's happening inside your own body so you can take control before it's too late. When I reflect on all of this, it reminds me how easy it is to take our health for granted. We think we're fine because nothing hurts today. We assume everything is okay because the scale doesn't scream overweight. But the truth is far more complex. Fat isn't about appearance, it's about biology. And until we start seeing it that way, too many people are going to miss the warning signs. So here's the bottom line for me. Fat is neither good nor bad in itself. It's about balance. It's about having enough to keep your body working well, but not so much that it starts turning against you. And in a world where abundance is the norm, where food is available 24/7 and movement is optional, that balance is harder to find than ever. That's why I believe the first step is awareness. You can't change what you don't understand. And for me, realizing that fat is an active living organ, not just extra weight, was the turning point. It shifted the way I looked at health, and it's the reason I'm sharing this with you now. Because once you see fat for what it really is, you'll never look at your body the same way again. The more I've learned about fat, the more I've come to see it as a double-edged sword. On one side, it's essential for life, a built-in insurance policy that our ancestors relied on for survival. But on the other side, when fat builds up beyond what the body can handle, it turns into something destructive, almost like a fire that spreads silently through the body. What makes it so tricky is that it doesn't announce itself right away. You don't suddenly wake up with a heart attack or diabetes overnight. It creeps in slowly, disrupting the systems that keep you alive until the damage is too great to ignore. What really shook me was realizing just how many parts of the body are touched by excess fat. It's not just about the waistline or how your clothes fit. Fat can alter the way your hormones work, leaving your body in constant confusion. It can stir up low-grade inflammation that never really shuts off, like a smoke alarm constantly buzzing in the background. It can cause fat and cholesterol to pile up in places they were never meant to be, and it can even create extra physical stress on your joints, muscles, and organs. When I picture these four effects together, hormonal chaos, chronic inflammation, lipid overload, and mechanical strain, it feels like fat becomes a silent puppeteer, pulling the strings of disease across the body. Take the heart, for example. We all know too much fat is linked to heart disease, but what does that actually mean? It means your heart is working harder than it should, pumping blood through more miles of blood vessels just to supply extra tissue that doesn't need to be there. Blood pressure rises, cholesterol levels spiral out of balance. The delicate lining of your arteries gets irritated, making it easier for dangerous plaques to form. And those plaques don't just sit there. They can block blood flow to the heart, causing a heart attack, or to the brain, causing a stroke. It's sobering to think that something as ordinary as fat could set off a chain reaction that ends in life or death moments. The same pattern shows up in other systems. Extra fat around the neck and chest makes it harder to breathe at night, leading to sleep apnea or shallow breathing that robs the body of oxygen. Joints that were designed to carry a certain load suddenly face extra pressure, and over time, that pressure grinds away at cartilage, leaving people in pain with arthritis or chronic back problems. The liver, one of the hardest working organs in the body, starts to fill with fat in ways that damage its function, sometimes progressing to liver failure. Even the digestive system is affected, with conditions like acid reflux made worse by the pressure of excess abdominal fat pushing against the stomach. And it doesn't stop there. Excess fat can disrupt reproductive hormones, making it harder for women to maintain regular cycles and for men to keep healthy testosterone levels. In some cases, fat actually converts testosterone into estrogen, changing the balance of hormones in a way that has ripple effects throughout the body. There's also a growing body of research linking excess fat to certain cancers, not because fat directly causes cancer, but because the constant inflammation and hormonal imbalances create an environment where cancer cells can thrive. On top of that, the brain isn't immune either. Hormone changes and chronic inflammation can impact mood, energy, and even mental health, fueling issues like depression and anxiety. Hearing all of this might make it sound like fat is the ultimate villain, but the reality is more complicated. Not everyone who carries extra fat will experience all of these conditions. Some people can live with higher levels of body fat and stay relatively healthy for a long time, while others see health problems much sooner. That's because fat is only part of the story. Genetics, stress, sleep, age, diet, and physical activity all play massive roles in determining whether fat tips the balance toward disease. I find that reassuring in a way because it reminds me that fat isn't destiny. It's a risk factor, one that I can influence with my choices. The question, of course, is how to keep fat from tipping the scales against us. And here's where things get interesting, because despite all the debate about the perfect diet, the evidence still points to a simple truth. It's about energy balance. If you consistently eat more than your body needs, fat will accumulate. If you create a calorie deficit, fat stores will eventually decrease. That doesn't mean the type of food doesn't matter, because it does, especially when it comes to how satisfied you feel and how well you can stick with a plan. But it does mean that no matter what diet you choose, Vegan, keto, Mediterranean, low carb, high carb, the underlying principle is the same. Calories in versus calories out. When I first tried to lose fat, I made the mistake of focusing only on cutting calories without thinking about what I was eating. I lost weight, sure, but I also lost muscle, felt constantly hungry, and had no energy. What I've learned since then is that it's not just about eating less, it's about eating smarter. Getting enough protein is crucial if you want to hang on to muscle while losing fat. Pairing that with resistance training makes a huge difference, because building and maintaining muscle doesn't just make you stronger, it actually helps your body burn more energy, even at rest. That's like turning yourself into a more efficient calorie-burning machine. Another lesson I've taken to heart is the importance of food quality. You can hit the right calorie target eating mostly processed foods, but your body won't thank you for it. Over time, it leaves you sluggish, craving more, and dealing with all the side effects of too much sugar and refined carbs. The biggest change for me came when I started basing most of my meals on whole foods, lean proteins, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and unprocessed grains. It doesn't mean I never enjoy dessert or a slice of pizza, but those things stopped being the foundation of my diet. And the difference in how I felt, energy, sleep, focus was undeniable. Of course, I can't talk about fat without mentioning the emotional side. For many people, conversations about fat are loaded with shame and judgment. I felt it myself, that sting when someone makes a comment or when you compare yourself to others. But here's what I've come to believe. This isn't about shame. It's about knowledge and empowerment. Calling fat unhealthy isn't a moral judgment. It's a scientific fact. And when we frame it that way, it takes the blame out of the equation and replaces it with something far more useful. Action. So where does that leave us? For me, it comes down to balance. Fat isn't the enemy. It's part of who we are, part of what keeps us alive. But it's also something that, when it builds up too much, can quietly erode our health from the inside out. The goal isn't to be fat-free, it's to keep fat in that just right zone where it does its job without becoming destructive. And the good news is we have more control over that than we often realize. Through diet, movement, sleep, and stress management, we can tip the balance back in our favor. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And every step you take toward balance is a step toward protecting your future self. The more I think about fat, the less I see it as a personal issue, and the more I see it as a global one. On the surface, it seems like fat is just about individual choices, what you eat, how much you move, the lifestyle you create for yourself. But when you zoom out, you realize this is a challenge that stretches far beyond any one person. It's shaping the future of healthcare, the economy, and even the way entire societies live. And that's why, to me, the conversation about fat isn't just about biology. It's about the bigger picture of how we live in the modern world. Let's be honest. We don't live in the same world our bodies were designed for. Human beings evolved to survive scarcity. For thousands of years, our survival depended on storing energy when food was available because famine was always around the corner. Fat was our secret weapon, the reason our species could make it through harsh winters and long dry seasons. But now, food scarcity isn't the problem anymore. Overabundance is. High-calorie, highly processed food is everywhere. You can buy it 24/7, no effort required. Pair that with sedentary jobs, long hours in front of screens, and less physical activity than any generation before us, and it's no wonder fat has become such a massive issue. This shift didn't happen overnight. It's the product of decades of changes in culture, technology, and economy. But the result is clear. Obesity-related diseases are on the rise almost everywhere in the world. Heart disease, diabetes, liver disease, and even certain cancers are increasingly common. And these aren't just medical conditions, they're financial burdens. Billions of dollars are spent every year on treatments, medications, hospitalizations, and lost productivity. Families are affected, communities are affected, and entire healthcare systems are being stretched thin. That's why I believe the fat problem isn't just about individuals. It's one of the defining health crises of our time. But here's where I find hope. Just as technology and modern lifestyles have fueled this epidemic, they also hold the potential to help us fight back. Think about it. We now have tools that our grandparents couldn't even imagine. Devices that can measure body composition, track sleep and activity, monitor heart rate and blood sugar, and even predict health risks before they become major problems. Nutrition science has advanced to the point where we can personalize diets to fit someone's genetic makeup or microbiome. Fitness programs can be streamed right into your living room. Even medications and surgical options are becoming more refined for those who truly need them. In other words, we're not powerless in the face of this challenge. The tools are there. It's about whether we use them. Still, technology alone won't solve everything. At the end of the day, change starts with awareness and choice. I think about this a lot in my own life. I can't control the fact that fast food is everywhere, that my job requires long hours sitting, or that stress tempts me to reach for comfort food. But I can control the choices I make in response. I can decide to cook more whole foods at home. I can take breaks to move during the day. I can prioritize sleep, which I've learned is just as important for fat regulation as diet and exercise. And maybe, most importantly, I can talk about fat without shame, because that's the only way to replace guilt with action. What really motivates me is the thought of the future. If we keep ignoring the role fat plays in our health, we risk raising a generation that will face even higher rates of chronic disease, shorter lifespans, and a lower quality of life. But if we start treating fat for what it is, an organ that requires balance and respect, we can shift the trajectory. Imagine schools that teach kids about nutrition and movement in a practical, engaging way. Imagine workplaces that encourage activity and provide healthier food options. Imagine a healthcare system that focuses more on prevention than just treatment. Those aren't impossible dreams. They're choices we could start making now. And this brings me back to you. Because while the global problem of fat might sound overwhelming, it always comes down to individuals. Every choice you make adds up. Every meal, every walk, every night of good sleep is a vote for your health and against the silent damage of excess fat. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to follow the latest diet trend or spend hours at the gym. You just have to be aware, make small, consistent changes, and treat your body with the respect it deserves. That's the power you hold, even in a world that seems stacked against balance. So here's the question I want to leave with you. Do you believe your own body might be hiding a layer of fat that you can't see? One that could be affecting your health in ways you haven't noticed yet? It's not an easy question, but it's an important one, because awareness is the first step toward change. And I truly believe that sharing our stories, our struggles, and even our small victories can inspire others to take action too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think modern life has made it harder to keep fat in balance? Have you ever been surprised by what a health test revealed about your body? Share your perspective in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to start their own journey. And as always, remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Step by step, choice by choice, we can reclaim control and write a different story for our health and our future. When I step back and look at everything I've learned about fat, one truth stands out. It's not the enemy, but it's not harmless either. Fat is a living part of us, meant to protect and sustain life. It stores energy, cushions our organs, and even produces hormones that regulate essential functions. But the moment it grows beyond what our bodies can manage, it turns into a silent force that can disrupt nearly every system: heart, lungs, liver, joints, brain, and more. For me, the biggest shift came when I stopped seeing fat as just weight and started seeing it as an organ. That perspective changes everything. It's not about shaming yourself into losing pounds. It's about understanding how your body works and giving it the conditions to function at its best. When I began focusing less on the mirror and more on my health markers, things like blood pressure, blood sugar, and sleep quality, I finally felt like I was in control. The lesson I take from this is simple but powerful. Balance is everything. Too little fat and the body can't survive. Too much and the body begins to break down. The sweet spot lies in between, and it's different for each of us. Finding that balance means paying attention not just to numbers on a scale, but to the signals your body is sending you every day. Are you tired? Are you in pain? Are you struggling to sleep? Those are as much indicators of imbalance as lab results. What encourages me is knowing that balance is within reach. We don't need a perfect diet or a flawless routine. What we need are consistent steps, choosing more whole foods over processed ones, moving our bodies in ways we enjoy, getting enough protein to protect muscle, and making sleep and stress management a priority. These aren't punishments, they're forms of self-respect. And when you start treating your body with that respect, it responds in ways that go far beyond appearance. Looking ahead, I believe the real challenge isn't just individual, it's cultural. We live in a world that constantly pushes convenience over health. Reversing the tide will take collective effort, better education, better food systems, workplaces that value wellness. But change always begins with awareness. And awareness begins with you and me deciding that our health is worth protecting. So here's my invitation to you. Take a moment to reflect. Do you believe your body fat is currently working for you or against you? Share your perspective in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I know others could benefit from your story too. And if this message resonated with you, if you want to keep learning how to protect your health and take back control, subscribe to The Wellness Way. Your support gives us the motivation to keep creating content that empowers, educates, and inspires. Together, we can build a community where health isn't about shame. It's about knowledge, balance, and hope for a better future.